November 4th, coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Kim Mok-hyun. Before we get started, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. South Korea reports a sharp rise in its daily COVID-19 cases on Friday, with the figure peaking at 629, surpassing the 600 mark for the first time since March. The global death toll due to COVID-19 surpassed the 1.5 million mark on Thursday. The U.S. once again recorded its highest number of deaths in a day, and Italy and the U.K. are also seeing a spike in their death tolls. And for the first time in nearly 4 years, the Chinese government has given the green light for the official marketing of a South Korean game. We begin with the COVID-19 situation here in South Korea. The country reported a whopping 629 new cases on Friday, jumping past the 600 mark for the first time since March. The increase is due to continuing infections from places where people are in daily contact, such as schools, workplaces, hospitals, and small gatherings. Of the new cases, 600 were locally transmitted, most in the greater capital area, and 29 were from overseas. There have been 7 more deaths, bringing the death toll to 536. The global death toll due to COVID-19 surpassed the 1.5 million mark on Thursday. The U.S. was the worst hit, with the country reaching a record number of deaths over the past 24 hours. Italy and the U.K. is also seeing a spike in the number of deaths. Our Lee Seung-jae has a wrap-up.
Over 1.5 million deaths have been reported across the globe. Amongst the countries, the U.S. has seen the most infections and deaths. Over the past 24 hours, 2,804 Americans have died from COVID-19. That amounts to 117 people every hour over the past day, and it's the highest daily figure since the outbreak began in the U.S. While some figures show the U.S. has seen 281,000 deaths total, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says the real total could be as high as 345,000. As the country is seeing a massive surge following the Thanksgiving holiday, over 100,000 patients are now being treated for the virus. Of the patients hospitalized, more than 19,000 are in ICUs, with nearly 7,000 on ventilators. The CDC, which had previously issued warnings against Thanksgiving gatherings, is now urging Americans not to travel during Christmas to prevent further surges. Across the Atlantic, the UK's death toll surpassed 60,000 on Thursday. The UK has the 5th highest COVID-19 death toll globally and the highest in Europe, ahead of Italy and France. With 414 deaths reported in the past 24 hours, the number of deaths over the past week stood at over 3,000, down 5% on week. On the same day, Italy reported a record 993 COVID-19 deaths, up from 684 the previous day. The previous record on a single day was 919 in March, at the peak of the first wave. Italy was the first Western nation to be hit by the virus back in February and has since seen over 58,000 deaths. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. President-elect Joe Biden says he wants infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci to be the administration's chief medical advisor and be part of his COVID-19 response team. He made the remarks during an interview with CNN on Thursday. Biden also said he'll be happy to get a coronavirus vaccine done in public once Fauci says it's safe, in order to demonstrate his confidence in it. His comments come a day after 3 former presidents, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama, said they would get the vaccine on TV as a way to demonstrate its safety and efficacy. With the UK set to begin distribution of COVID-19 vaccines very soon, and other countries not far behind in securing vaccinations for their populations, there are fears that developing countries have been left at the back of the line, leaving them with limited supply. Our Chim Min-jung has the details.
Countries like the UK will begin distribution of COVID-19 vaccines very soon, although many are voicing concerns over the likelihood of an unfair race between developed and developing countries. According to a study by the Duke Global Health Institute, more than 80% of the vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna have already been secured by the developed countries. This includes the UK, the first Western country to grant COVID-19 vaccine authorization, and the US, awaiting FDA approval in the coming days. With the huge bulk of available vaccines reserved for high-income nations, concerns are growing for governments from developing countries over how the vaccines will be distributed. One official from the Philippines said Wednesday that due to the 80% share reserved by developed countries and the 2% share secured by the COVAX facility, developing countries are now scrambling to obtain the remaining 18% of the vaccine available. Another challenge faced by lower-income countries is the cost of vaccination and distribution. Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines must be stored in costly ultra-cold containers, with the price of both companies' vaccines above $20. With this in mind, developing countries are turning towards securing vaccines from Oxford University and AstraZeneca. This is mainly because AstraZeneca's vaccine can be more easily distributed under standard refrigeration and is much cheaper at under $4. Meanwhile, AstraZeneca has also vowed to provide over 1 billion doses of its vaccine to developing countries. Choi Min-dong, Arirang News.
A series of cyber attacks have been uncovered on global COVID-19 vaccine supply chains. IBM cybersecurity analysts on Thursday warned they discovered an email phishing scheme targeting the distribution of vaccines, urging cold chain companies to stay alert. Fraudulent emails were sent by someone impersonating an executive at a major Chinese cold chain supply company, Haier Biomedical. The phishing emails were distributed across several countries, including South Korea, Germany, and Italy. IBM said it's unclear who the attackers are, but the purpose of the campaign, which started in September, may have been to gain future unauthorized access. The Trump administration has added a further 4 Chinese firms to its blacklist of companies allegedly owned or controlled by the Chinese military. According to Reuters Thursday local time, the U.S. Department of Defense included China's leading chipmaker SMIC and oil giant CNOOC in the blacklist. China International Engineering Consulting Corporation and China Construction Technology were also designated as alleged companies with links to the military, making a list of 35 affected Chinese companies. U.S. investors are prevented from purchasing securities of blacklisted firms starting next year. Experts say the move was likely intended to heighten tensions with Beijing ahead of the transition to Biden administration. The Chinese government has given the green light for the official marketing of a South Korean game in its market. It marks the first such approval in almost 4 years since Beijing implemented retaliatory measures against Seoul for its deployment of an advanced U.S. missile defense system. Our Kim Hyo-sun has more details.
China, for the first time in nearly 4 years, has granted a South Korean game developer permission to market its game across the country. It has issued a license for South Korea's Comtus to officially sell its mobile game Summon is War in the Chinese market. The latest decision is a major transition from Beijing's stance of imposing apparent economic retaliation against Seoul over its deployment of an advanced U.S. missile defense system in South Korea.
This is the first time in 4 years that China's National Press and Publication Administration has granted approval to officially market a Korean game.
This also comes as the South Korean government has urged Beijing to further open its cultural contents market.
We asked for China's proactive cooperation to facilitate cooperation in the area of cultural contents, to which Beijing has expressed hopes of continuing dialogue.
The move raises hope that more South Korean games could enter the Chinese market, which stood at nearly $9.1 billion in the third quarter this year alone.
It's deemed possible that Beijing could lift its retaliatory measures. I believe that we could expect this going forward, although it has not yet materialized due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
On the other hand, there are also pundits who say that Beijing's latest measure could be just temporary. Thus, it's left to be seen whether the Chinese authorities will decide to lift retaliatory measures entirely, measures which have impacted many of South Korea's industries, including tourism. Kim Hye-san, Arirang News.
South Korea's current account surplus surpassed $10 billion for the second month in a row in October, marking the third largest surplus since January 1980. According to the Bank of Korea's preliminary data on Friday, the October surplus reached almost $11.7 billion, up almost 49% on year. This marks the sixth straight month the account has stayed in the black and is also the largest surplus recorded in about 3 years. The goods account surplus widened to $10.15 billion, up more than $2 billion on year. But both exports and imports fell amid the pandemic. Exports fell 3.8% compared to last year, and imports dropped 5.6%. The services account also posted a deficit, but the deficit decreased on year thanks to improvement in travel and transport accounts. While tensions over Iran's nuclear program have spiked in recent days following the assassination of Tehran's top nuclear scientist, Iran is urging the U.S. and Europe to comply with their previous nuclear deal, which included lifting sanctions. Lee Kyung-eun reports.
Iran is calling for some give and take when it comes to its nuclear issues. Tehran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif is urging the U.S. and Europe to rejoin their nuclear deal. He signaled Thursday that Iran will comply with the agreement to scale down its nuclear programs if they also keep their promise to lift sanctions. He was referring to the 2015 agreement signed during the former Obama administration. That deal led to a substantial improvement in their bilateral ties. But in 2018, President Trump unilaterally withdrew the U.S. from the agreement. And tensions have been escalating in recent days following the assassination of Tehran's top nuclear scientist. Iran swiftly accused Israel, one of Washington's major allies, and vowed retaliation. Following the killing, Iran's parliament passed a bill to push for stepping up its uranium enrichment program. If approved, it will be a major move toward Iran having a nuclear weapon. But the government promptly said it could not change Iran's internationally promised nuclear policy. Iran remains cautious given the timing just under 2 months before President-elect Joe Biden takes office. Biden, the former vice president during the Obama administration, has previously said he's committed to returning to the deal. That'll mean, he said, lifting sanctions imposed by President Trump during his maximum pressure policy. However, for that to happen, Biden stressed mutual compliance, hinting that it could depend on what Iran has to give when he talks about give and take. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
Good morning. The capital region had the coldest morning of this winter so far. Freezing winds made it feel even colder than the actual temperatures. In fact, Daegwallyeong in Gangwon-do province dropped to nearly minus 14 degrees Celsius, and many other areas also had sub-zero temperatures. Highs, though, will climb to similar levels as yesterday. It's going to be mostly sunny all day, while highs will hover slightly below the season norms across the country. Then Chuncheon will reach up to 5 degrees, Daegu topping out at 8 degrees this afternoon. Dry weather advisories have been expanded to more regions now, that's including here in the capital. So stay hydrated and take precautions to prevent fires. Temperatures return to season norms tomorrow with a short break from the cold on Sunday and Monday. But ratings will drop down again after that, and it's going to remain cold through mid-December. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's a wrap for us at the hour on Arirang News. We'll be back with more of the day's headlines at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching and goodbye.